Great. Welcome. It's really good to have a conversation here about AWS, about cloud. So thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Great. So let's just start from the beginning. Like when people are talking about cloud, like today, there are no clouds in the sky. Like what do you really mean when you're just saying cloud and cloud computing? What does it mean?
You answered it already. It's cloud in the sky. So when you look out the window, see those blue sky? Well, and when it comes to, just not make it too technical, right? So let's assume the cloud like a library that stores books, right? But rather, let's, in the context of IT, is more or less where you store your files, your pictures, your entire solution, including your software. But the good part about it, or the creme de la creme about it, is you can pretty much access it from anywhere. So you don't need to have it you don't need to have application running on your phone or have it on your computer. It means you can literally walk into, so far as you have access to internet, you can literally access those files that are stored there. So in a nutshell, that's what cloud is all about. Originally, the name cloud came from, let's say, the old pictures, if they want to talk about the internet and the cloud, they use the cloud to show it. It's more or less, you can see it, you can access it, but you don't know what goes behind it. It's complex, more or less.
Brilliant. I remember, when I built my first website a long time ago, in the 90s, we needed to have our own servers at home. You have your computer, you got your website, and you need to have an internet connection running, and that was hard. But now, then things started moving, where you have a hosting company, then everything you need to run your company. But now with cloud, you don't need to have anything in your home.
Pretty much.
Brilliant. Great. And could you tell us about AWS and what is available on the AWS platform?
Wow. If I begin to tell you the story of AWS, we are not going anywhere. Are you ready? Okay. So AWS is just like any other cloud provider. It's more or less an infrastructure as a service. It's a platform that allows you to host your solution or services there. But the good part about AWS and what makes it stand out, we can start looking at Gartner quadrants. According to Gartner quadrant, they're the biggest. But actually what makes it the biggest and the best place for you to host your solution is because of its global reach, right? We're looking at about 31 global, let's say, regions all over the world, and they have availability zones. So what we mean regions is practically where they have infrastructures where those physical infrastructures. So they have it over 31 of them in different regions in the world, and they have availability zones as well. So what this means is if you have a solution or you have a startup or your business, it's easier for you to go global when you're in AWS. That's just number one. Now, the other part which makes it the best suited for your business is because of its support. So the breadth and depth of AWS is quite encompassing. So they don't just give you the infrastructure and let you be there. They also give you credit, which allows you to build fast, which is one of the problems startups and business have. How do I build fast? How do I actually go online quicker without paying a lot? And that's what AWS does. So they say, just come in, we'll help you. We know that you want to be that unicorn. Everybody wants to be a unicorn. I don't know about you. I want to be a unicorn someday. So they say, I'll sponsor you. I'll do that for you. I'll give you the support. There's a lot of huge ecosystem support within AWS. And that is one thing you don't get with other cloud providers.
Yeah, and I remember a conversation, you're listening to a conversation by Larry, the Oracle guy. Yeah. Larry, what's his surname? Yes, Larry Ellison. Okay, absolutely. He's talking about where people are saying, oh, there's no room for hardware now. Everybody is putting things in the cloud. It's like, what is cloud? Cloud is still hardware sitting somewhere, right?
It's just, a bunch of computers owned by a company, of course. It's still
exactly.
hardware.
Now, I like what you're saying, that AWS has got those computers sitting in different regions, different parts of the world. And that's like a big advantage, right?
A lot.
And then the next question would be, who should use the cloud? And what are the type of things they can use it for? Starting from, is it a certain type of businesses? Or could you tell us about that?
Okay, that's a tricky question. So who is meant to use the cloud? Pretty much anybody can use the cloud. Everybody sitting here is using the cloud, right? You have your phone, you're using your email, cloud is being used there. Pretty much, practically in our day-to-day life, we are, in a way, using the cloud without actually knowing. But when it comes to business, who should actually use the cloud? It's basically if you have clients all over the places that needs to access your service, the cloud is definitely a place for you to go. If you have a website, definitely you're hosting it. You're already using the cloud. So the question should be, who should use AWS cloud? Great. So I have been overseeing and helping startups integrate and adopt the cloud. And each time I speak to this startup, and I'm like, no, it's not time for you to come to AWS, right? Reason being is for you to use the cloud, you have to be a technical startup, basically. Because you will not be able to amass the benefits in AWS if you're not a technical startup. If you just need a place where you put your website and people can go read about your product, you don't need AWS for that. But if you're running a much more complex solution, for instance, what you're doing, I don't know if you're in AWS. If you're not, I think you should be already. Like if you're running such complex solutions, you definitely need to be in AWS because they have over 200 services that you'll be leveraging and tapping into. And if you are not in that space, AWS is not yet, or AWS, Azure, or whatever, all those big cloud is not yet a place for you to be because in as much as over a long period of time, clouds become much more cost effective, right? But if you go to AWS now and you're just using it for a website, I'm sorry, it's gonna cost you a lot and you won't see the benefit because, I mean, it's like, how do I put it? Driving a sports car in a unconstructed road, you're wasting the potential of that car. I don't know if I did justice on that, Sandras.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So in other words, like I look at AWS almost like a well-stocked kitchen. You know, like you go into there, you can make anything, right? You can build anything, you can cook anything. But in other words, like, okay, do you want to buy this whole kitchen so you can just cook rice? You know what I mean?
Or fry egg.
Or fry an egg.
Or boil water.
Like, maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, you just get your rice, right? But yeah, so it will be, if you want to build something a little bit more complex, and then you would use AWS Cloud.
Basically, say your e-commerce, say practically shopping website, say a more dynamic, interactive solution. You definitely need AWS, and there's money for you to get there if you ever want to do that.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the money. Like, what are the ways in which it would reduce costs for entrepreneurs who are building those type of solutions?
Great. There's a lot of ways, right? First and foremost, before you talk of reducing cost, let's talk about what is the first money you need to get into the platform itself? Because everybody pays for hosting costs, right? Whether you're using HostGator or whatever, you do pay for hosting costs. So when you're moving to a much more matured cloud provider such as AWS, that's where we come in, you know? We come in and give you some credits. There are certain credits perks that you get in AWS. So first we have what we call the Activate credit, where you've been assisted with $5,000 off the bat without any obligations, right? You get that so that it helps you, because they understand as startups or as business that is, you know, trying to take off, there's a lot of expenditures, right? We're looking at compliance, you're looking at budgeting, how to pay for your marketing and all whatnot. So you don't need to worry about the first, okay, how do I actually start paying for AWS? The cost could be very great. So you get the first $5,000, but it doesn't stop there. You can access this credit up to $100,000. It doesn't even stop there. If you're using AI, you can even access up to $200,000. And if you are in scale and growth stage, you can even get it up to $300,000. So it depends on where you are as a startup. That's where we come in as Silicon Overdrive, right? As premier partners, we understand the specs. We understand how to assess this. We come in, we look at you, we say, okay, based on where you are, this is $5,000 for you, and we handheld you to all this process till you even become a unicorn. Like we work with payment gateways like Ozo. We've worked with universities like University of Cape Town and even Netcare. And all these people, even with PayFast, from where they started as a little startup to where they are today, we've been there all through the way. So there are different budgets, there are different credits that you can access. But it doesn't still stop there, though. This is just, we're talking about credits. And you did ask me about cost optimization, right? Apart from this credit you get, you get other supports also that comes in form of credit as well. For instance, let's say you've built your startup to a certain extent, and now you say you're scaling. You don't know if you set up to best practice. So we come in and run what we call the well-architected framework review, which AWS funds 5,000 per production workload. So this practically helps you, not just about the credit you're getting, but it helps you set up your environment to best practice, helping you get those compliances that you need online. Let's say POPIA, GDPR, or PCI DSS, as the case may be. Pretty much. I can deep dive, but I say you won't go anywhere. And I like talking.
And that's very useful, because I'm sure there are some people here who've heard like, oh, you can access AWS credit. Like, what is that? What does that mean? Then, like, nobody to really explain. So because I've spoken to you, I've spoken to other people from Silicon Overdrive, and like people from AWS, and we, as Pranary, we give our credits as well. So you kind of understand, like, oh, there is even this. It's one like, you're like, wait, there is more, right?
Yeah.
So tell us, continue. I think give us a little bit more of some of the things that is available.
Okay.
And I think also you could touch on the proof of concept.
Yes. So just like the warfare, like Sandra says also, if you want to run the proof of concept. So now the proof of concept gets confused though. That is why it's a very tricky one to touch. So when people hear the proof of concept, they think it's just pretty much running a proof of concept from ideation, right? It's not about that. It's practically say, okay, I'm ready to go to AWS, or I'm ready to, let's talk about generative AI. We're talking about AI today.
Yes.
Let's say you want to incorporate AI into your solution. Just so you don't know, AI is very resource intensive. I don't know, he never mentioned it. It's GPU intensive, it's TPU intensive, and if you don't have some level of funding, it might be difficult for you to actually incorporate the services into your solution. So that's where we come in. That's what AWS champions in. So let's say you want to incorporate, say recognition. It's an AWS service that helps you pick up people's face and they can tell you who this person is. Or probably you want to use AWS Translate, right? It helps you translate from one language to another into your solution. Pretty much good. That's where the POC, proof of concept, comes in. AWS funds 10% of the projected ARR. Okay, so to break it down, we come in, we look at, okay, if you use these services, what is it going to cost you to run it in AWS for a period of 1 year, right? Then we take that cost, go back to AWS funds 10% of that. So you don't have to pay for it. They give you the sandbox to try out the solution, number one. So the sandbox is basically an environment where you try the solution and make sure that the service incorporates with your solution easy and works seamlessly. And then they fund pretty much everything that has to do with it, including our effort for helping you curate data. I don't know. And then there is more, pretty much. Say you're already living in a different cloud provider, say Azure, and you're finding it, or maybe you're on-prem, and you're finding it difficult to scale, but your expense is huge. We come in, we help you do the lift and shift. AWS funds this program and also give you extra credit for you to do that. Just to give you a little bit of an insight, there's about 90 funding programs within AWS. So I can't divulge it all. It depends on what level you are, where you are, and what you intend to do.
Yeah, I think I've had experience with the different cloud providers, like Azure. Azure is by Microsoft, and then Google Cloud Platform, then AWS. But I find that AWS is my personal experience, like where you have people you can really talk to and people will guide you. And for the others, it's like, oh, they're there somewhere, you know? And then also what I like is that with these, like some of the tools, like now I'm just in love with Bedrock. Oh. You know, like Bedrock allows you to build AI applications. So it's integrated with Claude, with ChatGPT, and you know, like a few others. But it helps you build really quickly, and another one which I enjoy, like just to play with. It's called Party Rock. Like that one I totally enjoy. Could you talk about some of those like different services that we could use? Like,
Okay, great.
kind of, yeah.
So if it comes to AI, AWS has done a great job in having a lot of services, right? If we talk about like the Bedrock you just spoke about, it's amazing. So you don't need to be an AI expert to use Bedrock. It's like plug and play. They have pre-trained models for you to use already. So ranging from anything you want to do, creating of videos, whatever you want to use to do, whatever has to do with generative AI, you can literally get it using Bedrock. See, they've trained the model for you. All you do is plug it into your solution, you use it. But then there is even a better one, Amazon SageMaker. So say you're very good you're an AI expert, and you really want to train your own model. Then you get the AWS SageMaker, which basically gives you the room to train your model however you want it. If you want it to someone sort 10 times for you, no problem. It will do that for you. You train it, you plug in, you get your data, you give it, feed it with that data, and then train it the way you want, and it gives you exactly what you want. So whatever level you are, whether you are an amateur or you're an expert, there's a provision made available for you. And there are funding programs around it as well for you to play around with if you really want to do that as well. And you don't want to leave money on the table, actually, because when it comes to AI, you definitely need those funding and backup.
Could you give us some examples of some of like applications that might be well known, like we use, but they actually built on AWS, or some companies that you might think of that are on AWS? Maybe any come to mind?
There's a lot of company that is in AWS. I mean, I've mentioned a few of them, like Ozo and University of Cape Town, Netcare. Pretty much, okay, let me just give context. Pretty much 90% of your big corporates in South Africa and all over Africa, they're already in AWS. I mean, what are we talking about? Netflix. We all watch Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix is in AWS. Yeah. And they make use of all the AI tools that AWS has in place, including curating the movies that you've already seen. Based on what you've seen, they give you some sort of recommendation of what could possibly be in the next movie you would love to watch based on what you've already watched. Yes.
Yeah.
So all the unicorns in the world, most of the unicorns, if not 99%, let me not exaggerate, 90% of the unicorns in the world is in AWS. So, I mean, that means they're doing something good.
Brilliant. We're going to take questions from the audience. We get like somebody with the mic will take, there's a question there. Great, so we'll take questions. We'll give the questions straight to the point, and then, yeah.
Hi, my name is Zubair Hendricks. I'm the founder of Prickly Pear Studios. I normally get turned off by AWS because of the costing of it. I have a tech, I'm a tech founder, but I can't afford it. First ask me for my credit card firstly, and then just on one spin, it charges me X amount. So I'm currently hosting it like with AfriHost and so forth. But I would like to move into the cloud, but coming from corporate, I understand and I've seen the numbers, and it's frightening actually. So, but you mentioned something earlier on with regards to Silicon Overdrive, where you actually mentioned that you can assist with landing funding and so forth. But I think the burn rate will be very fast because I saw how fast you can actually use money with regards to AWS. So I had a look as well. There is like the free program, like you said, the sandbox area. But after a year, it means I'll have to go out and try to get funding again type of thing, just to actually run AWS. So what do you actually have in place for that? You know?
Thank you very much. I was hoping somebody would ask me that, and thank you for asking. So, you see, one thing about the cloud is, especially with AWS, you pay for what you use, right? If you compare apples to apples, is that English correct? Apples.
That's right, it is correct.
Great. If you compare apples to apples, AWS seems expensive, like you said. But that is where we come in as partners. So AWS invests a lot in having partners like us to deal with things like that, because they know that if you go and set up that cloud infrastructure yourself, it's going to be expensive. For instance, you don't even know if the server you're spinning off is the ideal server you need for your solution. So you might need a T-small. I'm going technical now. You might need a little server for your solution. But because you're the one spinning it off, you might go spin off the big server. It's going to charge you for that big server because, I mean, there's nobody to stop you. If you want to spin up 20 servers for yourself, go ahead. That's where we'll come in, and that's where we'll run what we call cost optimization, right? We're not just giving you the credit. We're going to cost optimize your environment, which we look at your environment and say, okay, based on the solution you're running, based on what services you're running, right, is the services you're using in AWS actually what you need? We talk about right-sizing those services, making sure you're using the ideal service for your solution, thereby bringing the cost tremendously. And we do that on a yearly basis, sometimes on a monthly basis, depending on the sort of arrangement. But the well-architected framework review that I spoke about earlier on touches on that. So it deals with about 6 pillars. And cost optimization is one of the pillars. Where we do that right-sizing, are you over-provisioning or are you under-provisioning? Okay, those are the things we look at. We also look at your security as well, because, for instance, I'm not trying to throw shade here about the other cloud providers, but if you're in places like AfriHost and your solution needs to be some sort of compliant, they don't have that level of compliancy, which AWS provides. So we look at those pillars: security, cost optimization, operational excellence. How do you run your day-to-day business in cloud, basically? Your reliability. Okay, say something happens to you now, or maybe there's an outage. Do you have DRF backup and restore policy in place? So these are the things we can do. But you can only do that through partners like us. And that's why we're existing anyway. That's why we're there. AWS funds our efforts. It's of no cost to you for us to run this. We run it for you, we do it for you, and AWS pays us for that. Does that answer your question? So that means you're joining AWS today. You shouldn't be.
So is Silicon Overdrive the incubator, accelerator?
No, we are partners. We are premium partners of AWS. So just so to make you understand it a lot more better, AWS doesn't do anything physically in your environment. So if they need to do something, they have to do it through us. So we partners, we do the heavy lifting. They pay us. You go home happy.
They're consultants. Cool. Great. Next question.
Oh.
Please keep your questions brief, straight to the point.
Oh, okay. Since you on the generative AI part, ne? So you spoke about facial recognition. Does that mean you have like access to governmental identification database, or you partnered with the government? Because I think that's like information that is like for the government. You can't just put my image and then have information on me. Is it like picture recognition or the face recognition?
Okay. It's a service, right? It's a tool. Okay, so this tool, how you use it is that the tool recognizes pictures or recognizes images. That is the function, right? That's a function of the service. How you use it, so if you want to use it now, for instance, then you need to abide by popular laws. There are laws and compliances, of course. Just like you have blockchain and all whatnot, there's a lot you can do with it, but that doesn't mean anybody you see, or it just picks the image and now tells you who the person is. No. Before you use those services for yourself and use it for your solution, you need to adhere to certain compliances. But that's preliminary what the function of those AI tools are for. I don't know if it answers your question.
If I could, I can add to that.
Yeah.
Cool. It's to tell like who is this, like differentiating faces. So it's not to say it will know this is Sandras Phiri. It will know this is a unique face. So if you're building an application on the phone that would open by looking at somebody's face, or people walking into your store and you want to recognize them, you would use that service that recognizes faces. But then you can keep training it. Like some of us are already doing that, like we're training Google Photos, right? Where it says, is this the same person? You say yes, no, yes. You're actually training it. but it doesn't know who that person is, but it just says it's the same person. That's what the service would do. And then you have like different ones that would do all the different types of like recognition.
And the government can use it as well, by the way. And some of them are using it already.
Okay, I have a question as a startup. I want to ask you, do you look for requirements when I'm coming as a startup? And also in my solution, I will need a cloud because I will store data as patient. And also that is private. I can't just store in a cloud that everyone can have access. Need to be a patient and a doctor only. So if I come as a startup, what things you look for me, or you need also, like if I'm a seed, or you need a startup who's already running, what kind of startup you are talking about? The requirements.
Okay, thank you. Well, interesting. I've been dealing with startup, and this question is a tough one. I mean, because it's a bit, it could be sentimental a little bit. So, but the truth of the matter is, so far as you have a solution and you come, definitely we'll be able to assist you. Because first and foremost, you have to have something to put in cloud before you come. So once you have something to put in cloud, you come, we're definitely happy to assist. So we will start by assisting you with an Activate credit, which is $5,000. And we can also help you deploy or move your solution to AWS. And basically help you with cost calculator, even give you an insight as to what is the potential cost of me running in AWS within a year, within 2 years, within 3 years. We'll give you month-to-month cost of you running in AWS as well. And we'll help you continuously as you grow as a startup. So that is just a prerequisite. You just have to have a solution. Once you have a solution, definitely we're happy to assist.
Hi, so over here, I actually had a follow-up because I had a similar question. So when you say something to put in the cloud, you're meaning that the solution has been developed, there's some sort of app technology, it might not have to be perfect, but then that needs to be put up. Is that the level for entry?
You have a solution developed, yes. But if you also want us to develop the solution for you, we're happy to have that discussion as well. Just that there's no funding for that, by the way.
So
Let's say my solution is not yet developed, but I have a solution. So you're gonna charge me
For developing the solution? That is beyond the scope of AWS. Yes. We are happy to help you develop the solution because our company is big. So we do software development as well. We're very big. Just to give you context, we've been running for over 28 years. What we can do is mind-blowing. So if you want us to help you develop the solution, like develop the actual software, hallelujah. We'll do that. Just that there's no funding behind that. It's bootstrapped.
There's something you could do that would help you is actually going to ChatGPT or Claude, I love Claude, where you tell it what you're doing and then say, act as an AWS cloud expert, tell me if this would be, something that would work. Or teach me how to ask intelligent questions. Or teach me how to do this, or what should I look out for? Like all those type of things. Like you can learn something very quickly. Say, just teach me to understand this quickly, and so that if I have conversation with Chuka, what are the type of questions I would ask him? That would help you. And then also maybe just saying, you could also ask it to create like a basic solution for you. So like there's so much you can already do, and then go to an expert, and then even that question to say, what type of consultant or developer should I talk to, and what should I ask them?
Yeah, pretty much. He's very right. So I'm also a founder. I have my own startup. And one thing I've done with AI is funny. I prompted it to be my co-founder. Yeah, and it works magically. So, tap into the power of AI, but I can also be your human AI when it comes to AWS, So, yeah.
Cool. All right, we'll take a few questions, then we'll go to break.
Hello, Chuka. You mentioned something very important. You mentioned the bedrock and the sandbox, right? So when it comes to shipping AI applications way too faster, I've seen these bedrocks make it very, very easy. So what's actually the difference with the AWS bedrock? Because I've tested NVIDIA's bedrock, is quite good. I would like to know about the AWS bedrock, and if you can tell me more about the sandboxes, like the so let's say if I'm hosting an AI application, it has maybe 100,000 users, for example. Can you explain around the sandbox? Because it's an environment that you built in, but however, like let's say if I'm hosting my own solution and then it has most of these users. So how does the bedrock different, and how does the sandbox make it way too easier to host these users?
Okay, thank you very much. If you use the term bedrock, right, it's AWS. So if what you're seeing in NVIDIA is bedrock, that means they're leveraging AWS as well. Because NVIDIA and AWS, they work hand in hand pretty much. So just remember, bedrock itself scales automatically, right? It doesn't matter if you have 100 users now, and then then tomorrow you have 1,000 users, it will scale automatically, and that is why it's a managed service. So when it's managed service, you're not doing anything, you're just doing your thing, deploying, but in terms of scalability and accommodating what you're doing, it does that automatically. So that's pretty much why Bedrock is awesome. So the sandbox itself is basically presenting you with other services like your S3 buckets to save your data, because of course, AI deals with a lot of data, right? Both ingesting and training your model as well. So those other services that you'll be needing, like your S3 buckets and your database pretty much will be provided whilst you're doing your training and deploying your model. Does that answer your question? So there's automatic scalability for you. You don't need to worry about what if I get up to 10,000? What if I? Just remember, as you scale, the more the...
All right, to take last three questions.
Oh, okay. So about, I think, AWS, so is the cash injection based on empowerment or indirectly cohorting like entrepreneurs into your radar? Like, is it?
AWS does not give you physical cash.
No, I understand it's like credit. Is it like you, let's say, not directly cohorting like entrepreneurs into your radar? Is it like an empowerment maybe for business partnership, or is it like for future return on investment as like the credit?
I don't think I understand the question, but can you simplify it? It's still very, my head is too small.
Okay, fine. Say fine, there's cash injection, right? Yeah, cash injection, but then there has to be like an entrepreneur or a startup. Mm-hmm. So it's like more like you bringing them into your radar while you offer services. Ne? So over time in the future, is it like for business partnership, empowerment, awareness, or are you actually looking for investment on that entrepreneur?
Okay, so let me paraphrase it to just make sure that I understand you. Okay, so you're saying this credit they're giving out, the reason behind the credit, right? Are they trying to draw the client? It's very, very simple. I'll answer that if that is the problem. It's easy, right? It's part of their business model. They want to feed you so that when you grow, they can gain from you. It's simple.
I think that's...
And it's not a bad business model, right?
It's excellent.
It's amazing. That's how they invest. I mean, there are investors in the room, right? The reason you invest is to get it back when you exit. You don't invest in what you can't get back, my brother. So that's exactly what they're doing. They're putting it there. They're making you grow fat so that they can get it back. That's very much.
But how do you give back? Like, how do we give back to maybe, let's say, the unprivileged? Like,
the what?
the unprivileged. Let's say maybe, they're gonna run a business and have some income coming, but sometime I think there's this thing of like giving back, you know, maybe 2 or 3, just let them be.
It's business, my brother. You gain and you lose. You get some, you lose some.
So, by the way, you know you're in South Africa when someone says, hey, an entrepreneur is going to get cash. You know, I've been to 29 countries. It's like in the US, they do give grants, and in South Africa, they give a lot of money. Everywhere else, you hustle. You're an entrepreneur. You sell stuff. You charge for things. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. A big hand for Chuka, please.
Thank you, thank you.